Hello and welcome. A couple of weeks ago I bought a Haro Escape mountain bike frame and fork for a whopping $25. It's a 26-inch rigid bike, probably from about 1992-1993 at a guess. My plan is to build a rideable bike using components from my parts bins. Before I started the actual build though, I wanted to check and service the cup and cone bottom bracket bearings and the head tube bearings. I do this with every bike I buy, new or used. It's a pretty obvious thing with used bikes, but some new bikes only come with a light oil in the head tube bearings, even some fairly well-known brands. As you will see in this specific case, the bearings check turned out to be a pretty darn good idea. I started with the lock ring on the non-drive side cup. It was surprisingly easy to remove given its age. This lock ring tool doesn't have as much bite as I'd like, so I was pretty happy about that. The cup itself has an integral wrench fitting, and there is a special wrench tool for that too. However, I don't have one, so I used my good old large adjustable wrench. The cup was a bit tight, so it did take a while to get it to let go. But, at least it was free and moving, so I guess I can't really complain. Not yet. Here is the thing that really surprised me. As I mentioned in my first look video, I thought that the axle felt, a bit crunchy. Now I know why. There were no bearings on this side. I checked for loose ones, but nope, none at all. Luckily, I have a few caged bearings for axles in my spare parts hoard. Moving on to the drive side, I removed the cup with a cup wrench. I was again pleased with how easily it removed. How did I get so lucky? But then, another surprise. The bearings were present, but I couldn't get them out. It seemed as if the bearing cup had somehow fused with the main cup. I guess it could have been built that way, but I've never seen one like that before. Have you? Here are all the bottom bracket bits, all cleaned up, ready for grease and reassembly. While this style of bottom bracket is not state of the art, it does have the very real advantage of being completely stone cold reliable, as long as it has bearings, that is. As I said, I also check head tube bearings on every bike I purchase. The Escape's fork felt a little crunchy and grindy too, so a look was definitely in order. Threaded head tubes like this are straightforward to service. Remove the lock ring, the retention ring, and the bearing ring. The fork then just slides out and Robert is your mother's brother. Once more, a surprise awaited me. The upper caged bearings were completely destroyed in this bike. The actual cage was in pieces. Several ball bearings were missing, and the cup was packed with grime. Here is what was left of the upper bearing and the lower bearing. And as you can see, they were clearly in terrible, terrible shape. I have a bag of new 1-inch cage bearings, so I'm not even going to attempt to save and reuse the lower bearing. Reinstalling the drive side cup was just as easy as removing it, and of course I greased the threads beforehand. But before I installed it, I cleaned and packed the bearings. Again, I couldn't remove them, so this will work for now. Moving to the non-drive side, I put in the plastic sleeve, greased the axle just to prevent rust later on, and I packed the replacement cage bearings and slid the whole thing in. I also greased the threads on this cup to make it a little less apt to stick later if I have to remove it again. I replaced the upper and lower head tube cage bearings with new ones, and then reinstalled the fork. And installation literally was the opposite of removal, and frankly, I forgot to film it. But I did run into a bit of trouble doing this though. The upper 2 or 3 threads on the fork turned out to be stripped. Yay. Now, I didn't notice this during disassembly, but I sure did during reassembly. It required a lot of patience, more than I thought I had, to be honest. But I was finally successful, and I got the fork reassembled, and it now spins freely. And here is the frame and fork, fully assembled and sporting proper bearings for the first time in, who knows how long. You can also see the tools which I used, which made the job easier. But as far as the tools go, well, there are alternatives, of course. And there is an old saying that any tool can be the right tool if you are sufficiently motivated. That's kind of funny, has a certain ring of truth, but having the right tools makes life a lot easier. My big takeaway here is to always check out the moving parts in any bike you buy. You never know what you will find or what you will not find. If you enjoyed this, there is a link to a playlist lower left and another video lower right. And as always, seriously, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate that. Goodbye and have a wonderful day.